Neama Rahmani. Well, you are a wonderful analyst, and we love having you on the program. It's a Friday, getting excited for the weekend. And this trial is so exciting to watch. I mean, all of the layers of facts, it's so complicated. What's your impression so far, what you've seen? And then I also want to ask you about the investigator in a moment.
Fascinating trial. And anytime you have a triple murder that's been cold for so many years, and finally the Attorney General of Kentucky, got involved, and ultimately now he's governor. So there's this political component, there's a military component, there's an affair between Kit Martin's wife and one of the deceased. So there's just so much going on. You have national security, classified information being downloaded, a U.S. government kill list. So really just a truly fascinating case, not to mention the fact that he was literally arrested at Louisville Airport as he was about to pilot an American Airlines flight.
Right. Isn't that crazy? And I mean, the proximity that these three families live to one another, when we were looking at that map, I mean, they were all neighbors. And the one thing that's kind of weird to me, I'm sure many of our viewers find it weird, that you have Edward Donsero and Pamela Phillips together in that car, which is very strange. And one thing I think that's important to note, I was talking with our legal correspondent, Julia Janae, about this. She said it's possible that these deaths didn't occur in that car, that perhaps the bodies were moved. Who knows? We haven't really gotten to that point quite yet. But did that jump out at you, too, that we didn't have the married couple together in that car?
That was certainly interesting. Obviously Cal is shot and there was an attempted arson, but ultimately, his remains were there. But then you have, Pamela and Edward, who are found together shot in a vehicle. The vehicle is torched, so a lot of that evidence is gone. So clearly the same sort of pattern and MO for whoever the killer was. Obviously the state thinks it's Kit Martin, but very interesting way of both conducting this murder and this triple homicide and how the killer tried to dispose of the evidence.
Neama, tell me what you thought of the last witness, the lieutenant, and his testimony laying things out. Do you think that moved the ball forward much for the state?
No question. Lieutenant Scott really covered everything, and obviously the state wants to prove motive, means, opportunity. He touched upon motive, that Cal was going to testify against Kit Martin at that upcoming court-martial proceeding in 2 weeks. Then you have the means, where he discusses, how the killings were done, both in terms of the vehicle and the folks that were killed or at least placed in that vehicle, as well as the blood evidence in the home and really the opportunity. He even hit upon the cell site evidence. We know that's going to be critical because even though it's a small town and a lot of folks live near one another, ultimately one of the key pieces of evidence for the prosecution here is that Martin had Pamela's cell phone with him, and that cell phone traveled with him all the way to Fort Campbell, where he was working at the time.
Exactly. I'm so glad you mentioned that, because I know in the research that Court TV did prior to this trial, we understand that the defense is adamantly refuting that. They're saying that the evidence of the cell phone location is flawed. So I can't wait until we get into this cross-examination of Lieutenant, and we'll see what defense counsel brings out. Neama Rahmani, always great to have you on the program and have your legal analysis with us for some legal analysis and insight. Neama, I know you also have experience as a prosecutor as well. So I want to ask you about just the way the state is approaching this case thus far. This was witness number 4 we've seen. We saw 2 family witnesses that were called first. Tell me what you think of how they're fashioning this case. What do you like and what might you do differently, please?
I like getting everything through one witness if you really like that witness. I think Lieutenant Scott is doing a good job. I agree, it's a complicated case. There's a lot of evidence here. There's multiple bodies that have been found, and there's a lot going on because there's a parallel court-martial proceeding. There's sexual abuse and physical abuse allegations. There's a bigamy case against Kit Martin's wife that's going to be relevant. And obviously, a lot of scientific forensic evidence. I mean, we're talking about blood, hair, DNA. I mean, jurors expect to see that evidence, but cell site evidence as well that we've already talked about. So there's going to be a lot that's going on. We know that there are going to be experts that are going to come on because this was the subject of defense motions to dismiss the indictment relating to that cell phone evidence. So there's a lot that these jurors are going to have to process. And I think the state's done a good job. I like this witness. he's sort of laying a good foundation for all these different types of evidence.
Agreed. He really is. From a fact witness kind of standpoint, how do you think he has helped the state's case, and what did you think of the cross as well?
Julie, agree. My heart goes out to Matt. And even before this trial started, we have to give credit to Matt. He advocated on behalf of his deceased father. And even the attorney general said one of the reasons they continued to investigate this case and ultimately prosecuted it was because of Matt and all the advocacy that he had done in both the state and national media. But Matt is a critical witness, not just for identifying his father. Let's not forget, he is the one who helped find the shell casing in addition to Matt's aunt and Calvin's sister, Diane. They're the folks that 4 or 5 months after the murder found that shell casing that matches Kit Martin's firearm. So he's a very critical witness. And ultimately, of the two, he polygraphed and apparently passed the polygraph, even though Cal's sister Diane failed. So they're going to be important for the chain of custody that's going to link Martin's firearm to the scene of the murder.
Right, he sure will be. Neama Rahmani, great to get your insight. Thank you kindly